Hello, this is Jenny at Designs with Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. I have an art journal page for you, and it is another inspired by Pinterest project. I saw this card on Pinterest, and I knew I could translate this into an art journal page. So I will be using a floral type focal point and some stamp blocks to create that watercolor or that faux watercolor background look. I am working on my Teflon craft mat because it is so easy to clean up. Super easy. The first thing I did was pull out the page of my dictionary that is the leaf page, has the word leaf on it, because I am using this Simon Says Stamp Large Leaf die as my focal point. And I have cut two of those leaf branches out. The first thing I want to do is send that text to the background. So this is a dictionary that I purchased at my local thrift store. It was already falling apart, so I didn't feel bad about cutting it into pieces. I have this thing with treating books nicely, even dictionaries. I am taking this liquid gesso and watering it down so that it becomes a little bit more translucent. Now, white gesso does dry back. So unless you put a really thick layer on, it will be translucent. But I wanted it to be even a little bit more translucent. I wanted the text to be visible, possibly even readable, but not the first thing you noticed when you looked at the page, except for the little paragraph or little section for the word leaf. That I did take off more of the gesso, and I just did that with a wetter brush. And so I'm kind of going around the definition of the word leaf, and I am trying to keep that definition block less covered up than the rest of the page. I did fidget with this for a while, and it's a good thing that I did add the gesso, and quite a lot of gesso, because this is just an old dictionary, and this paper is not meant for water or mixed media of any kind. Once I was satisfied with the amount of coverage the gesso was currently providing, I pulled out my heat tool and heated this up to dry it. I wanted to make sure it was exactly what I was going for. But then the white gesso had kind of taken away some of that old book coloring. So I have pulled out I think it was walnut stain Distress Oxide ink pad, and I am going to use a foam blending tool to put some ink around the edge of this page. Now, it was a little bit darker than I wanted it to be, so that I went baby wipe that was not sopping wet, but not completely dry, and pushed it back a little bit. And that gave me that kind of old book feeling that I was going for. And I'm pretty satisfied with how it's looked, and it's good and dry. So now I have pulled out this stamp block, and this is the smallest stamp block I own. And I have 3 colors of acrylic paint, and these are some paints I purchased on Amazon that have kind of a gold undertone to them. It's a blue, an aqua, and a green. And I am going to put a little bit of these paints on my craft mat, completely off screen, obviously, and water them down so that I can use this acrylic paint as a watercolor. I am doing that instead of watercolor because I intend to layer them, and acrylic paint, once it is dry, is dry. It doesn't go anywhere. So I am going to add some water, and I am super speeding this up. Most of this video is at least 2, maybe even 4 times faster than I actually worked. But I kind of felt like there was a lot of repeat in this video especially, so I didn't want you to have to sit and watch the whole thing in regular speed. I learned a couple of things when I was working with this ink. And one thing I learned is that I can redefine the edges of the square with a paintbrush. And the other thing I learned is that if I leave the stamp block on the paper a little bit, then it creates more defined edges to work with. Now, the Pinterest inspiration was a larger stamp block and just 3 squares. But of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, my goodness, I can do way more than 3. So I just continued to add paint when I needed it, and water to water it down and put my stamp block into it and continue to redefine the edges as necessary with my paintbrush. I started with the lightest color up there in the top left, and then as I went down the left-hand side, I added the darker colors. My focal image is going to go up the left-hand side of that page because the definition is on the right side of the page, if that makes any difference at all. So I noticed when I was editing this that the whole video process, when I took out the fussy stuff, the cleaning and the drying of things, was really about a 30-minute video, but that still felt kind of long. So I decided I needed to speed it up. And I think this part right here is like 8 times normal speed. But I'm curious, would you rather have a 30-minute video with no speeding up? And what in the world would you want me to talk about if that is the case? Leave me a comment and let me know. I would be more than happy to not speed up the editing process or not speed up the video process if you want to see the whole thing in real time. But you got to tell me what you want me to talk about then, because I am 100% sure I would run out of things to say about this page. Okay, so I have my first layer of squares down and I have dried them with my heat tool, and I want to add a second layer over the top. So it's going to look more like a pile or a stack of squares than just a line of squares, if that makes sense at all. And I'm going over the darker squares with a lighter paint and over the lighter squares with the darker paint, just so that you can decipher or discern between the two of them. And this is when I kind of realized that leaving that square or the stamp block on there really did a better job of defining the squares. And this section of squares, I'm not putting straight up and down. I'm kind of turning them on their diagonal edge to make more of a diamond or a rhombus, as my children tell me now, because they're not diamonds anymore, they're rhombuses. And I decided I needed one more in this last corner, or 2 more, or 3 more, until I run out of paint or figure I'm done, right? Because that's just how it works. You just go until you feel like you're done. So the next step in this art journal page is I have pulled out my Faber-Castell Pitt Big Brush Pen. Now they don't make these big pens anymore, but they have skinny pens in the same kind of ink. And the reason I love these pens is because on a non-porous surface with a slightly damp finger, I can smear that India ink around. But once it is dry, it is dry. It does not move. Okay, so here comes the second fussiest part of this art journal page. I had cut out 2 of these leaves, or these branches, vines, whatever you want to call them, and I cut them out on mixed media paper because I wanted them to be able to tolerate a little bit of liquid. But they're super flimsy. There's no other word for it. Mixed media paper is not your heaviest paper. So I couldn't figure out exactly how to get 2 of these to go onto this page, especially considering I wanted them to kind of curve toward the middle and then point back out to the right side. And it just was not, I mean, I am fighting with this branch, and fighting with one was fine. But then when it came time to put the second one down, that got interesting. I added I'm using gel medium to glue them down, and there's just no inherent strength to this paper. I cannot get it to lay down where I want it to be. I cannot get it to arc in the way I want. So I said, forget it. And I just went with one. I said, no more. That other die cut will show up on another project on another day. The next thing I wanted to do was to add a little bit of shadow to this branch, because especially this left-hand side does tend to blend in with that dictionary page. So I'm taking that green Pitt pen again, and I'm just going around the bottom layers and then the stem, or the bottom, sorry, not the bottom layers, the bottom edge of the leaf and then the stem. I didn't completely go all the way around. You know how when you're a kid and you're coloring in coloring books and you take your crayon and you trace the whole shape and then color toward the inside? I didn't do that. I just traced the bottom of the shape because I was going for that shadow emphasis. And then I traced the sides of the stem. And I did both sides of the leaf or it says a leaf, a branch, a vine, whatever it is. I did both sides of the vine and then the bottom of the leaves on each side. And it just kind of adds a drop shadow, and it pulls it off of the background enough to give it its own space in the art journal. It becomes the focal point with that little shadow underneath it. I really love how you can change the look of your art with just a little bit of shadowing. So for my quote on this page, I have pulled out my book of Tim Holtz Chit Chat stickers. And I have 2 notebooks of these little sticker strips that I completely forgot about. So I am trying to use them. This one is black printed on white core paper. So I am going around the sentiment strip rather, with a Sharpie marker, just to kind of cover up those white edges. And this sticker says, always be on the lookout for the presence of wonder. And I just liked it. Doesn't necessarily go with the leaf image, but I liked how it looked. I am going to adhere this dictionary page into my art journal page. And funny story, since then, I have taken everything out of that art journal book and put it into a little A5 sized 3-ring binder because it doesn't close anymore. It was getting too thick for the cover to close, and the cover was getting ripped off. So I found some A5 1-inch 3-ring binders on Amazon, and I'm just going to put them in a 3-ring binder from now on. This dictionary page ended up slightly shorter than the page in my art journal. I guess I measured once and cut twice. Didn't exactly go down how I planned. I thought I measured it exact, and I thought for a minute, well, how in the world did I do that? And then I decided I don't care. I really like how the page turned out. I feel like you can look at the card and look at my art journal page and see that they were inspired by the same thing, but that my journal page is not a direct copy of that card, and it has its own beautiful look. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I hope you enjoyed this art journal page. Let me know what you think about Fast Forward. Let me know how you feel about the shadowing. I have added some videos for you to watch that I think you might like. And if you have not done so already, please subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. Have a great day.